Hey Joe, how are you?
Yes, Pablo, how you doing, mate?
Good, good. How are you? How's everything?
Yeah, really good, really good. It's good to finally meet you,
Yeah,
and I really appreciate the flex with the rescheduling and the scheduling and the rescheduling and all that kind of thing.
yeah. No, it's
Much,
all good. It's good. I definitely appreciate you taking the time. I know for me, I'm usually at the other end of these calls, kind of doing the interviews, so should be a pretty fun one, and definitely really glad that you reached out. It really means a lot.
oh, nice one, thanks, mate. Um, yeah, there's a lot to learn, a lot of questions to ask about Club 11 and
Hmm.
and your story behind that, I guess, as well, and like what took you there, which is often the most interesting part. But before I get started, I'd just like to ask your opinion on something.
What is it?
What do you think of my hat? I'm
Nice.
working on a bit of a prototype
Yeah,
here.
I see it. Yeah, that looks cool.
Logo needs a bit of work, as you can see, but
Yeah. No,
not bad, eh?
yeah, I'm guessing you were working on that yesterday. That's
Yeah,
what we had to.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It took me all day. That took
took
me
you
all
all
day,
day.
mate.
Yeah, yeah. Is that the first? I guess that I guess merch that you've been working on.
Yeah, we've got some t-shirts
Yeah,
currently that tied in with a zine we put out back end of last year, a Leo
nice.
Messi A1 poster pull-out
Uh
zine.
huh. Yeah,
Um, but this will be the first kind of specific MPLH merch.
yeah.
Uh,
No, that's awesome. It's exciting.
we'll give it a go, worth a go, right? You
Yeah,
never know.
yeah. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. Yeah.
So, where are you calling in from right now?
Uh, I usually say DC, but I guess technically it's Maryland.
Maryland.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I actually spent 2 weeks in DC a long time
Really.
ago. Yeah, middle of the winter, maybe
Oof,
2011.
brutal.
Or
What
2011? Yeah. Oh, it was
what?
brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you here for?
So I'd started working for a startup called Living Social.
Oh,
I don't know if
no,
you've
I've
ever
never
heard
heard
of
of it.
those.
No,
Yeah,
no.
they don't exist anymore. Um, as many of these startups don't quite make it
Yeah,
too far down the
yeah.
road. But yeah, it was one of those. It was it's probably the most interesting time of my working life. I'd left traditional publishing
Uh-huh.
for this role at a company I'd never heard of, but an ex-colleague was working at,
Yeah,
and she said, "I'm building a team, and you get to go to DC for 2 weeks at the start of it." And I was
yeah.
like, "That sounds
How did you
sounds fun."
how did you like it?
Wait, so the museum, I loved it.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah.
That was pretty neat, and I went to a really good dive bar, and I forget the name of the suburb now, but you'll probably know it. It's like, oh, Adams Morgan, is that
Yeah, Adams
right?
Morgan. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So we went to a brilliant dive bar in Adams Morgan where there were like I think cocktails were being or shots, so were being
Hmm.
poured out of like the squeezy ketchup
Yeah,
tubs, and
yeah.
you could just
That's
top up
awesome.
your own glass, and yeah, it was unlike anything. It's the sort of bar I'd only seen in the movies,
Yeah,
so it was pretty neat as a Brit to be in that spot. But yeah, I
yeah.
really liked it there. It was just so cold. It
Oh
was just
yeah,
so cold, and
yeah.
there was a really funny moment where, well, funny for me, you might have had to be there, but there was one of the guys that I was working with on my first day said, "I will go to lunch, get to know people, blah 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 blah. There's
Uh-huh.
this great Portuguese place. You're gonna love it." And he took me up the road, and it was Nando's.
Nando's.
Yeah, and I was
That's
like, "Mate,
crazy.
there's like six of these in my hometown." Um,
Yeah.
I think yeah, bless him. He thought it was this kind of cool
No, I mean,
family
I think
run.
I really can't blame him because it's funny when a lot of people come visit, DC, Maryland, and all that. That's where I usually like to take them because they don't have it anywhere, or I guess they
Mate,
have a few around the U.S., but for some reason here
yeah,
in DC and Maryland, they have like three or four. And I mean, obviously, like I know it's this really famous chain over there, but here it's like you take somebody to Nando's and they're like, oh my god, cheeky Nando's, this is crazy.
yeah. I
Yeah.
love the fact. I love the fact that the expression "cheeky Nando's" has
It's carried
transcended.
over.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
brilliant. That is
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
So your surname is very, very cool. A double barrel surname is always uh,
yeah. Thank you.
it always piques interest. Whereabouts do you originate from?
I'm from Peru, so
Peru.
yeah, I guess the double barrel. The first one is my dad's, and then second one is my mother's. She was from Chile. My dad's from Peru. I was technically born in Chile, but I usually like to keep that under wraps, just because Peru and Chile have that big rivalry, especially when it comes to soccer. So when I was growing up
Oh
in
wow.
Peru, I was just like, no, I'm Peruvian. I don't have any Chilean blood in me. But yeah, I
Like
was. Yeah, I'm
hands
like,
up. No,
please,
nothing to do with
no,
me. Nothing to
nothing
do
to
with
do with me.
me.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I was there until I was 10 years old, and then that's when we moved to the U.S. It was great to grow up in Peru. To be honest, I don't know if you've ever been, but
No.
beautiful country, awesome soccer culture. It's amazing.
What can you tell me about what you remember from,
Yeah,
I guess, being introduced to the game as a kid in Peru?
yeah. I mean, I think it was. I think like many of us from around the world, it's you almost don't choose it. It just is naturally just what you grow up doing. I mean, I think um, I have a twin brother. His name is Gabriel. So I guess we started Club 11 together. I guess back in 2018. But obviously, since we were little, we grew up playing just out in the backyard. I don't even remember the first time, but it was just this thing that we would always do, and it was a classic. You go to school, you're playing soccer in the schoolyard with your friends. You get back home, you're supposed to do your homework, but we would just run outside and get to play with our friends from the neighborhood. And then we would do that until it would get dark, and that was pretty much it. And then I think in terms of like fandom and stuff, I obviously have my team over there, Alianza Lima, that I still follow to this day religiously every week, even though they're kind of hurting me a little bit right now just because they're not doing so well. But yeah, I mean, I remember going to the stadium with my dad. I remember going to the Peruvian national team games just throughout my childhood with my friends from school, my father. So it was always just a part of my life. I think there was no way of escaping it. I grew up playing it, grew up loving it, and yeah, I mean, even when I had already moved to the U.S., I would still go back to visit to Peru as often as I could, but a lot of times it was also based around specific matches that were going on with the national team. So if I knew that there was an important game going on, I would try my hardest to try to fly down there, meet up with my friends, and then go to the stadium. I think obviously I love everything that's going on with soccer here in the U.S. I'm a little bit obsessed with it, but there is just always something different about going back home and seeing your national team, seeing the teams that you grew up watching. So it's always a very special thing for me, and I think when I look back at my childhood in Peru, a lot of those memories are just tied to soccer. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it when it comes to remembering everything growing up playing over there.
Yeah, well, the way you speak of that, I guess that explains Club 11 pretty
Yeah,
simply and why that exists, right?
yeah. I mean, I think when it kind of goes back to it, I mean, we like I mentioned, we started in 2018, and it was pretty funny, the whole story of how it started, because my brother and I had gone over to Spain. It was the summer after high school, so for us we'd never been over to Europe, so it was super exciting. And while we were there in Spain, one of our favorite players from Peru had actually signed for Rayo Vallecano, so they were doing the presentation in Madrid, and we were super excited. So we caught different buses around Madrid, figured out where he was going to be, and we went to the presentation. And my brother took his camera. He was kind of getting started at the time, and he obviously got some shots of the whole presentation and all that. And it was funny because it was all the reporters were in front of the Peruvian player, and for him, he was just technically in the stands, but he was taking photos, and he got this great shot of our favorite player right in the middle, and then the whole lineup of photographers right in front of him. So he just sent it over to a newspaper over in Peru. They got it published, and that was the first time he got published. So then we got back to DC, and that was right around the time Wayne Rooney had just come over to play for DC United. So we were just chatting one afternoon. Yeah, it would be super cool to see if we could get in and see how the credentialing process works. So he applied to go in as a photographer, and he was accepted. So he was super excited, got a lot of different shots and all that. And then for me, I always, like I mentioned, I grew up loving the sport. I also enjoyed riding while I was growing up. So for him, he would take the photos, and then I would just kind of write a little something to put up on this new Instagram page that we had started. And I guess that's how Club 11 came to be. But it was all, I guess, it was this thing where my brother and I just kind of grew up loving the sport. It was the thing that we always did, and it just felt natural in a sense to try to do something like this. So yeah, it's funny looking back.
Well, I'm gonna have a lot of fun picking through this.
Yeah.
First of all, you're a twin,
Mm-hmm.
and forgive me for jumping around through
No,
what
no
you
worries.
just said. I'll pick through it.
Yeah.
I'm expecting twins.
Oh wow.
The back end of this year, yeah, that seems
Yeah.
to
No,
be the general
congratulations.
reaction.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of quite exciting for me to hear you talk about something that you work on with your brother, because I guess it just maybe provides a little bit of time travel for me, and I can imagine the bond, which from what I gather is unlike any other siblings between twins. It's kind of reassuring and warming to see that you've got that bond, which from what I understand is different to any other sibling, and the fact that you're working on this together, and it, judging by your expression and how kind of happy you are to talk about it, it goes well. You work pretty well together, so that this kind of makes my shoulders drop a little bit when I'm thinking, oh, maybe this won't be so difficult. Maybe this will be.
No, I would.
They'll keep each other busy. Each other busy.
No, really, I think it's gonna be. It should be an exciting journey. I always try to think back of like, man, I wonder what my dad thought when he got the news that he was gonna have twins. Because I know it's
if
like,
he's anything like me, he probably thought, holy shit, what am I going to do here?
Exactly. I mean, you're expecting one, and then you get double. But I mean, I think for that, like you said, it's like twins in a sense take care of each other, and maybe it eases a little bit of the workload at some point when it comes to the parents, just because in a sense they always have somebody to play with, always have somebody to just do things with. They can take care of each other. So it's really fun growing up with a twin. I would say it's I definitely consider myself very lucky. And like you said, it's different than it is with other siblings. I mean, I think when you kind of look at I don't know, you look at other siblings that work together and stuff like that, sometimes there's butting heads and all that. I think obviously with twins it's the same thing, but I don't know, it seems like we always are able to like resolve things, and whenever it comes to like any disagreements or anything like that, it's always for us just understanding at the end of the day, we're brothers, we're twins, and we're just butting heads, not like towards each other, but just because we're trying to do something special, right? And when you have two opposing viewpoints, obviously there'll be butting heads sometimes, but at the end of the day, I think we both understand it's to try to make each other better in a sense. So that's always nice. And yeah, I can only say amazing things about my brother. He's the best.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm sure I'll be tapping you up as a point of reference when I encounter any kind of friction. Pablo, did this happen with you when you were 5? Did this? Yeah. What do I do in this situation? Help me. So it sounds like quite an organic formation. I love the fact that your brother took that image, sent it off to the Peruvian press, and off the back of it was able to essentially get press credentials for Major League Soccer. Which is
I know.
Cool. That's some really good hustling. That is some really good hustling there. Which I guess explains the like the success of Club 11 since then, and the quality of what you put out. There's obviously that kind of desire to make this work.
Yeah.
I'm a massive fan of it. The newsletter, especially. There's
Thank
a
you. Thank you.
lot of what goes into that
Yeah.
is like the same genre of content that I would be very excited about putting in issues of MPLH when it was a magazine. You know, like the lesser told kind of untrodden
Yeah.
paths that you kind of venture down and dig out these stories that kind of really do shed a light on the impact the game has had. You know, in your case, in North America, that
Yeah.
can be mistaken for thinking that it existed for a bit in the 70s,
Yeah.
and then it came back in the 90s. But there's a whole
Yeah.
treasure chest of history over there, community level, and like the local leagues, and it's prevalent even in today's game.
Yeah.
What was it? The Beach Street Cup, which you
Yeah.
covered
Yeah.
with the guys in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I mean, that sort of stuff has been going on for decades and decades over there.
Yeah.
And yes, it's pretty. Yeah. So anyway, what you're putting out is excellent, and it's really
Thank you.
interesting that you lean into the writing here, and that's something that you enjoyed doing when you were younger.
Yeah.
What was that? What did that look like? That writing outlet for you when you were a
Yeah.
kid?
I mean, I think for me, when I look back at when I really started writing, it was. I mean, I had just moved to the U.S. like I mentioned when I was 10 years old, and I remember my dad kind of having a conversation with me. I think he said, you need to learn English as best as you can because yeah, I mean, if you don't speak it properly, if you don't write it properly, people are not going to take you seriously in this country. It's going to be difficult for you. And I know for him that was tough. I mean, he was a doctor. He just come over to the U.S. and I think he did encounter some of that, at his work, where maybe people hear the accent, the English is not the best, and people here just can kind of sometimes judge you based off of that. So I remember having that conversation with him, and for me, I thought, okay, maybe I won't speak it perfectly. I think when I had just moved, I had a lot of trouble really, like, at least for the first year, making friends, opening up, having conversations. It was just difficult. I mean, it's a brand new language, brand new country, brand new everything. So for me, I thought, okay, maybe if I can't go all out speaking, I'll make sure that my writing is perfect, so that if anybody who reads it, they won't know that I'm not from here, and I'll be taken seriously. Which
Just
I
don't
think
sign your name at the bottom.
exactly, yeah. Don't put Pablo because then they'll know. But yeah, so that was I guess how I kind of started writing and trying to be very professional about everything. So that was, throughout high school. I think I really enjoyed, doing the reading that was assigned and all that. When I was little, I enjoyed reading as well, outside of school. But when I moved, it was always, I liked, working on those school papers. I know a lot of people usually don't, but for me, it was okay. I enjoyed, taking something that I had read or any ideas that I had and kind of putting them on paper. But really, I guess up to when we started Club 11, I hadn't really done any writing that was, more for fun, more for me, more something that I really enjoyed. I mean, when it came to soccer, it was the perfect combination and the perfect outlet for me to kind of pull my thoughts out when it came to the game. Um, but yeah, I guess before that, I had never really tried it. It had always been a thing of, I have to write very formal. This is for school and all that. But this was like a whole new world. And I'm sure, obviously, like, with all the work that you've done with MPLH and the writing that you've done, it's fun to finally be able to write about something that truly, truly interests you. And yeah, I think that's what got me into writing at first. It was just, wanting to fit in a sense when it came to American culture, and then doing all of that throughout high school when it came to those school papers, but then from there, when we started Club 11, it was my freshman year of college, and yeah, it kind of opened up a whole new world when it came to writing, and it's just been really fun. So I've been doing that over the past few years.
Did it come with a sense of freedom in that you were
Yeah,
finally writing something that you were, passionate about and in a style that could be whatever you wanted it to be?
yeah. I think there was definitely that sense of freedom of, I think it was like, okay, like maybe I don't need to write so formal. Maybe I don't need to follow all those structures that I had taken so seriously while I was growing up. And it was definitely a lot of freedom. And I think at least the part that I enjoyed the most was, that I felt like I was, it it felt good to be writing the stories of other people, because that was one of the things that we really started to push, I think, towards the end of 2020 and the start of 2021. It was, doing these interviews with different athletes in MLS and WSL, USL. I think at this point it's athletes, and then also, um, just anybody who's doing anything cool with soccer in North America. And for me, it was freedom, and it just felt good to be able to take the story of somebody who maybe hadn't really had the chance to have a platform to speak or share their story, and kind of bring all those ideas and all the things that they told me about into something concise and digestible for people. So that, to me, it was, that type of writing was freedom, and it was also more rewarding than any of the other writing that I had done in the past. So it was perfect. I mean, I think, from there it's also grown to doing a lot of different type of writing. I think for the newsletter, like you mentioned, it's, um, that's, I guess, separate to the profile stories that we do as Club 11, but that's also a different way for me to explore my writing and try to follow different avenues. So it's been a lot of fun. That's really all I can say.
And this has always been in tandem, like you're on words, brothers on imagery, right? So that's the
Brutal.
so that for you was keeping in line with that being your outlet there. Has the structure from day one of Club 11 been like your roles were clearly defined basically, and
Yeah.
you've merged those two? So his interest, it was always with the images, yours has always been with the words, and the two marry up perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how I would describe it. It's funny, again, kind of looking back at my time in Peru, and that whole twin bond while we were growing up. I remember and always working on different projects together. And I say projects, but it was, building a Lego set or something like that. And it was always like, okay, like, I'll take care of this, help me find these pieces, and I'll put them together. Or, even when I look back, I just think of there was we really liked reading comic books for for some reason. When we would come back from playing soccer and we would have our little, afternoon snack or something like that, we would open up different comic books and we would just read. And I remember one time we just thought, okay, hey, it would be nice if we, wrote our own. And I remember I would come up with a story, or we would just talk about a story that we wanted to tell, and he would do the drawings, and then I would do the little speech bubbles or the whole like narrative for the story. Um, Obviously, that never really went anywhere. We did it a few times when we were probably 6 or 7 years old, really small. But it's funny that I think now you almost see that happen with Club 11, in a sense, where I think for me, like you said, it's our roles are in a sense defined when it comes to that. I kind of take care of all the writing and all that, and my brother takes care of all the visuals. Obviously, he doesn't do all of the photography himself. I think that's another piece of the puzzle that's really cool. It's just, um, when we started back in 2018, there were a lot of people from around the country that kind of reached out and were asking, like, okay, how did you guys get credential? Would it be possible for me to shoot a game as well and maybe contribute to Club 11? And in a sense, that's how Club 11 continued to grow. I think right before the pandemic, we were in 10 different cities, covering MLS and WSL, USL. And it kind of grew to the point where there were, between 20 to 25 contributors from across North America, going out to shoot games every week. And honestly, I think when it comes to the story of Club 11, I can't really tell it without mentioning them because without them, it honestly would have been impossible. And it's great to have been able to do all this work with them over the past few years, just because they've just become friends at this point. For all of us, it was a lot of learning together. It was a lot of just exploring North American soccer together, and that just kind of brought us close. I think at this point, it's been 6 years since a lot of us have been working together, so it's really special. And I think, yeah, when it comes to roles, I know like all the visuals and the imagery, it kind of goes through my brother Gabriel, but yeah, I guess in terms of the writing, I kind of take a look at that. But it's, yeah, there's a lot of different roles, a lot of different people involved with Club 11, and uh, I know it. I guess it does come back to Gabe and I when it comes to putting stuff together. But at the end of the day, we we obviously know that all of this wouldn't have been possible without all the people that have been contributing and have been committed to trying to make Club 11 what it is today. Um, but yeah.
Sticking with that, it's obviously it's an unavoidable observation there that it's taken X amount of contributors to build Club 11 to what it is now, and that seemed to take off around 2020 onwards. Club 11 is 2 at that point, and I guess for it to have garnered that interest from other creatives, it's obviously built enough of a profile to be noticed, right? Which is down to you and Gabe. Would you say the fact that there were 2 of you working on it together sped up the upward trajectory of Club 11 versus if it would have been you on your own or Gabriel on his own?
Yeah, I think about that all the time, and to me, it's, at least my answer is yeah. I mean, I don't think. I mean, I think very highly of Gabe, so maybe I would say, yeah, he could have done something super special anyway. But at least when I look at it, I just think, yeah, it was that thing of, if I'd been starting this alone, for example, I don't think it would have, maybe it wouldn't have gone anywhere, or it wouldn't be where it is today, at all. I think it's one of those things where at least there is always that reassurance that you have somebody who has your back. And I feel like it's difficult sometimes when you're doing something on your own. You feel like you're fighting against the whole world in a sense, especially if you're trying to build something from scratch. But at least for me, I always had that assurance that I was kind of going into battle with my brother right next to me. Um, and I think it was great that we both have different strengths and different weaknesses, but I think we complement each other very well. And I think that's one of the things that has kind of helped us get to where we are today. It's just merging both of our passions, merging our strengths, and finding a way to push forward. It would have been very difficult to just do something like this. Just, I think, if he had done it himself or if I had done it myself, I don't think it would have. I don't think it would be where it is. I don't think Club 11 would be where it is today if we had just done it separately. And aside from the two of us, again, I think it's also like, I like to think, obviously, yeah, it's the two of us, but I also like to think of it as it's not just two of us. It is those 20 to 25 people that continuously contribute to Club 11, because um, yeah, it's just, first you think with one it will be difficult, with two, obviously, again, still difficult. But then when you get three, when you get four, when you get five, and you get people who really love the sport and are committed to um, trying to build something that's bigger than themselves, I think that's when special things happen. And uh, I think we've been very fortunate to have met the right people at the right times, and that they've all been so willing to contribute and to work for something, like I said, bigger than ourselves. I think we're all doing it because we want to push the sport forward here in the U.S. There's obviously a lot of people that have that same mentality. But at least with everybody who I've worked with through Club 11, it's having that mentality, but also having the mentality of, okay, we want to do this together, because we know we can get further if we do this together than if we do this on our own. So yeah, I mean, I guess to summarize it, obviously when two is better than one, and then three is better than two, and so on and so forth.
And 25 is better than 3.
Than 3.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
The storytelling aspect, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that is that's something that you've always enjoyed doing, and the profile element of Club 11. So the personal profile element of that is
Mm-hmm.
a particular sense of enjoyment. Why do you enjoy sharing individual stories? Why is it important to you?
I mean, I think that's a good question. I mean, I think to me it's important because, and again, maybe everything ties back to Peru, but when I was growing up, like I mentioned, I was very very invested with Peruvian soccer culture. Um, I was obsessed with my team over there. I was obsessed with the national team. Even if uh, even if we had almost no success while I was growing up, we were always last in World Cup qualifiers, and it was a pain to follow all of that. But I was super invested. I was in love, and now when I look back, I'm like, man, watching the league over here is a little bit tough once you get used to watching the Premier League or European soccer and all that. But I think when I look back, the reason that I loved it so much was because I felt like I knew the players very well. I felt like I knew them as human beings. I felt like I knew what their whole journey was to get to the professional level. And I felt like I knew all their hobbies off the field and all the things that they were up to. Um, so for me, I kind of look back and I realized, like, okay, having that connection, with the athletes, with the people that we see every Sunday, that can bring a human connection between the fan and the player. And maybe that's what gets people to love the sport more than anything else, more than the quality that they may be able to see on the pitch. If they feel like they're represented, if they feel like they know who's playing, then I feel like you can kind of start up that romance in a sense. And I think for me, I kind of wanted to help out in that sense when it came to soccer in North America. I try to see if I could give a platform to these stories so that fans and players could kind of um, connect better in a sense, and maybe foster that love, and do a little bit to help out the growth of soccer in North America. I think that was the whole mindset behind the storytelling. And yeah, I think it's still here to this day, kind of having that mission of, okay, let's bring that human connection out between the fans and the players, because at the end of the day, that's, I think, what's going to last and what's going to build a strong foundation for fandom here in the US, I think.
What do you think it was or is about that connection that struck a chord with you? A load of people can just go to football and watch it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I think seeking that connection and using the game as a conduit to something else is definitely the way I lean as well. But yeah, I'm curious if you know what it is about that pulls you in. If you understand that draw, or whether it's just
Yeah,
something that you can't quite quantify.
I think,
There's obviously a romantic in you somewhere.
yeah, but I think it's definitely I think if you like the sport and you see these people on TV, you see them, in big stadiums, they're naturally going to be your heroes. I think they're going to be people that you look up to, and especially when you're younger, they're invincible, right? If they're out on if they're out on the pitch, you're like, man, this person is my hero. They're doing everything that I could ever dream of. But I think it's it's really unique when you're able to humanize that hero in a sense, and kind of learn that they go through the same things that you and I do. Obviously, they're out playing on the pitch, and we see them as heroes, but at the end of the day, when you get to know their story, you realize that they go through exactly the same things that you and I are going through. It's just for them, they happen to play soccer. I think I still remember. I always take little things from all the interviews that I've done over the past 5 or 6 years. But one of the ones that sticks out to me the most, um, I think you always remember your first, in a sense, and I always remember the first interview that I ever did, and first write up, first everything. And we were just kind of getting started with telling these profile stories, and uh, I was going to the University of Maryland at the time, and there was a player that I had been seeing throughout his college career, and then he signed for DC United. I think he was able to win the Gold Cup with the U.S. men's national team and all that. So he was very successful. And I remember uh, I had just reached out. I had looked for his email on the university database, and that's how I reached out to him. And we did the interview, and his dad was the president of the university at the time. And we were doing the interview, and he was telling me, he was like, I always felt the pressure, maybe from my family, in a sense, that I was supposed to go the academic route, but I always knew that soccer was what I wanted to do. And he was opening up, I guess, about how it was a struggle to maybe um, not go down the path that maybe his dad wanted him to go on, and all that. Uh, and I think for me, I was like, okay, this kind of resonates a little bit with me, with where I am at this point in time. Just because I'm also, studying in university. I was doing the whole pre med route. Uh, so I was like, yeah, like I
Wow.
also maybe don't feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. And here is an athlete that is playing for DC United, playing for the U.S. national team, and he's going through the same thing that I'm going through. Maybe not exactly the same, but I could relate to the feelings that he was having. Of, yeah, I mean, maybe there's a path that people expected me to go on, but I'm going down this other path just because I feel really um, it, it was the path that he truly truly wanted to go down on. And I think for me that was one of the stories that, like I said, every single one sticks with me. There's always a little bit, a nugget of wisdom that I kind of take from all the interviews that I do, that I really take to heart. But that was one of the ones that kind of showed me of that connection that can happen between an athlete and a fan, and it just goes right down to, they go through the exact same things that everybody goes through. It's just that maybe we don't really get to see that a lot. Um, but I think that's, I guess, what's at the core of it. If I had to take a stab at it.
That's a really interesting interaction, and I can see why
Mm-hmm.
you drew a lot from that.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very interesting that the path you were on
Yeah.
was very different to the one you find yourself on now.
Yeah.
What was the reaction of your parents when you
Yeah.
moved away from that?
Yeah. I mean, I think because both of my parents, they were doctors. I mean, it was how they met. It was all that, and I grew up in that environment. I would always see them working together. They worked in different uh, impoverished communities around Lima, specifically around tuberculosis and all that. And they would take me all around, and I think I always kind of grew up in that whole medical field and public health type of view. And I don't think there was ever any pressure from them whatsoever. At least not direct. It was just what I had grown up with. They were both they were both doctors. There were also people in my family that were also doctors, and for me, I think I was always a good student growing up. Straight A's, in a sense. I always had that fear of, like, man, if I get a B, my parents are gonna be mad. It was never gonna be that way, but I had that mentality. Um, but it was, yeah. I think when I went into college, I was thinking, like, I don't really know what I want to do. I don't really understand my path. I think I'm a pretty good student, and hey, I mean, being a doctor seems pretty cool. I've enjoyed, kind of learning from my parents and going around with them and doing all these cool things. Um, but yeah, so I just thought, okay, like let me try this out and see if it works out. But it's interesting because I guess eventually everybody finds their way into what they're supposed to do, and I think for me, it was halfway through college of when I really started thinking like, yeah, I really don't think the pre-med route is the way I want to go. I mean, I was doing well in classes, but it was not motivating. Uh, it just wasn't fun for me. It didn't call to
Is
me,
it,
you
is that a
know.
really is that a really diplomatic way of you saying like this is bullshit, man, and this is
Pretty
not
much, pretty
this is not
much,
for me.
pretty much, because it was that thing of you go to class and you look at the notes and you're like, I don't. This is not. I mean, this is for somebody. Somebody else might find this interesting, but I don't.
Just a lot of this going on, like a
Yeah,
lot of pinching
just
of the, yeah.
yeah,
What am I doing here? What am I doing here?
exactly.
I just
And
imagine
I mean, I
you.
think going back to
I
a question
imagine you
about my
gazing out of a
parents, like
class
their
window and just
reaction
seeing
wasn't
some. Sorry, I imagine you gazing out of a classroom window and gazing at some people playing football and
yeah,
thinking,
and I was like, I need to be
what am I
there.
doing?
What
Yeah,
am I doing? Yeah, exactly. But my parents, I mean, they were very supportive. I think, um, for them, it was. I think they always, to me, they just told me like, okay, whatever. Since I was little, they always would tell me, whatever you decide to do, just make sure you do it properly, you do it correctly, and you always try to be the best at what you're doing. It doesn't make sense to do something if you're only gonna do it halfway, and that's what I was thinking when I kind of made that switch. It was like, okay, I'm only doing this halfway, and this is not going to be good for anybody if I'm only if I'm only doing this halfway and if I'm not really invested in this. So I mean, when it came to making the switch, it was support more than anything else. I mean, I think they would um ask me questions just to see like, okay, has he thought this through, like what is he thinking? But it was always like, okay, eventually my dad would always tell me, he's like, yeah, like I didn't really find my field until I was 40 years old. That's when he really started working with tuberculosis and all that, and that's really when he found his path. So he told me like it's okay to not know what you want to do. I mean, you're young, you're in your early 20s. It's normal. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just plan out what you want to do and just go and do it. But if you're gonna be doing something halfway, then it's not worth it. If you're not happy, just there's nobody forcing you to go down this path. So I really appreciated that, definitely.
yeah, that's priceless support.
Yeah,
Knowing that there's no judgment coming from like
yeah,
from what's the word I'm looking for? Influential family
yeah,
members that you just want them to be happy with you, right? That's what
yeah.
that's what we all want.
Right.
And there is a fear, is completely unsubstantiated. We
Hmm.
make it up in our head. They're going to
Hmm.
be angry with me if I get a B. And the
Pretty much.
reality is, they don't really care.
Yeah,
We tell ourselves these stories, and one of the
yeah,
stories is, I have to keep on this path because I don't want to let anyone down. And
yeah,
again, yeah, the reality is they just want you to find something that fulfills you.
yeah,
And obviously, Club 11 did that.
yeah.
What was the? I mean, there's a sharp growth, as we touched on, from
Hmm.
getting those early credentials
Yeah,
for the DC game, and so 2 years later on, where you then start really seeing some growth with it.
hmm,
What have your learnings been personally from that period? How have you had to grow yourself
hmm.
as Club 11 has grown?
Oof. Yeah, that's a good question, but I think it's been great because I feel like Club 11 and most of us, we've kind of grown together in a sense. It's been a lot of like you said, it was those early credentials. We just kind of asked, tried it out, and somehow it worked out. So I think there was a lot of that when it came to Club 11. It was okay. We're doing this for the first time. We don't really have a roadmap of which way we're supposed to go, but we'll try to figure things out and do things the way that we think we should be doing them, and eventually we'll learn from that. And I think when I look back at these 6 years, it's great to kind of see the growth of Club 11, but also personally for myself, I see that I've also grown as a person. um from the very, I guess, going back to 2018, I was still very green when it came to these things, and then over time you end up picking up a lot of tricks, I guess. And I think I think for me, one of the biggest things that I've learned is, I guess when you're younger, you always think like, okay, if I put in the work here, my reward is clear. It's gonna be right ahead. Hey, if I study for my exam, I'm most likely gonna do well. Or you, I think when you're younger, used you're always used to kind of seeing the hard work that you put in a sense, immediately spit back out a reward. Um, but then I think eventually you kind of start growing up a little bit and you realize, like, okay, the reward maybe isn't as instantaneous as you think it would be, or isn't, yeah, it doesn't come as easy or when you expect it to come. And I think for me, it was learning, like, okay, I'm putting in a lot of work now, and it's tough because I don't have the assurance that I'll get something out of it, but that's my north star. It's my hope that I'll get something out of it, but obviously I'm doing it because I enjoy it and all that, but it is a lot of hard work. And even during the times where you think like, man, I'm doing so much and I don't know where the reward is. I don't know where that, where the tangible thing is after I've put in all this work. But then eventually you realize, like, there is a reward down the road. I mean, it's not maybe the reward you expect or something like tangible. Uh, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
Yeah,
it's
absolutely right. Yeah,
it's
that makes sense.
it takes time. So I always see it as like, the work that I'm doing right now today, I'm only going to see the fruits of that labor, who knows, 6 months down the road, a year down the road. But you always need to have that belief that it is going to pay off at some point down the line. Even if you can't see it right in front of you, there is always going to be a reward down the line. And I think that's kind of how things have worked for me personally, and I think also for Club 11. It's always putting in a lot of work, and then you don't know if it's going to pay off, but then you look back, 6 months into the future, and then you look back and you're like, okay, all the stuff that I was doing 6 months ago, that's what's led me to this place right now. And it's just been incremental steps from there. um yeah.
Yeah, it's easy when things are getting a little bit difficult, and you start having those moments where
Yeah.
you're wondering what the payoff is, or sorry, wondering when the payoff is coming, but
Yeah.
also you start to become unclear on what exactly the payoff
Is the
looks like.
payoff. Yeah.
Yeah, like what am I expecting from a payoff, and is what I'm expecting different from what I'm going to get, or is what I'm expecting even what I need in terms of a payoff? Like what is the
Yeah.
greater lesson, what's the greater learning, all that kind of thing. And you can start to get in your head, and you
Yeah.
like, what's the point? Is anyone even watching this? Is anyone even listening
Yeah.
to this? Does it matter? Should I just pack it in and just go and do something else? But in the moment, the reward for me, and maybe you can relate to this, but when those kind of thoughts creep in the moment, the reward is just, for example, just sitting here chatting with
Mhm.
you and getting to learn more about you. Like, okay, what do I like doing on a base level? I'll go and sit in a coffee shop and chat with someone
Yeah.
and connect. And so that's obviously something that aligns with me and is part of my purpose, if you want to use that
Yeah.
word. And for your pathway, when you're wondering what the payoff is, you like telling stories, you enjoy connecting. So at the very least, like you're doing something that fulfills your soul, and what you're doing it for. If that is the only reason you're doing it for, then fine. You know what I mean? If it feels good, and if you're doing something that feels good, the byproduct of that is you'll make good work, or work that that's a subjective term, but you'll make something that is authentic and resonates with people, and then in turn that attracts people to it, builds the community, which is what you want, and then out of the community comes exposure and possibilities and collaborations and all this kind of thing, and then there's the more tangible payoff. I think is what maybe you're alluding to, because you obviously want to sustain a life with this platform, right? But it all starts with what you said there, doing the little things, which is on any given day, sitting down at your laptop and writing a feature. And some days you're like, can I be bothered to do this today? but yeah, it could be worse, right? You could not be sitting there doing that. You could be elbow deep in somebody's stomach, covered in blood, and you'll be thinking, you know what? I wish I was writing now.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I mean you worded everything that I wanted to say. You worded it perfectly. I mean, I think there's the tangible reward, we're all thinking we're working towards that, but kind of like you said, at the end of the day, it's almost the process of the process is the reward. It's a little bit cliche, but when you think about it, there was somebody that I was interviewing yesterday, and that was one of the things that they were saying. It was like, at the end of the day, maybe they didn't get to that professional level like they had always dreamed of when they were a kid, but when they look back, they see that those moments that they had growing up and pursuing that dream, that was what always stayed with them, and eventually it brought them to whatever they're doing now. So there is always a reward in a sense, and I think most of the time you can find that reward in the process of doing the work that you love. I think, like you said, like for me, sometimes it's difficult to get to writing, but I always think back to like, man, I could be studying for like a medical school exam right now, and I would probably hate that a lot more than anything right now. So,
and you would be writing, but it would not be interesting to you at all.
Yeah.
You'd be writing something, but
it wouldn't be what I love. Yeah.
Very clinical, not so much a creative outlet.
Yeah.
Some questionable grading if you started to kind of add your own flavor into it a little bit.
Yeah. I can't get creative there. Yeah.
The point about the process is the reward. It reminds me of, well, it's a similar point, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I've mentioned this book on a few episodes at the back end of last year. I don't know if you've ever read it or heard of it, called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
I have not, but I need to write that down.
Yeah, I'll send you.
Yes,
send you
please.
the name afterwards. It's a bit of a heavy read in parts. It goes off. It's from like the 70s, but it's basically about a guy's journey across the States on his motorbike with his young son. And I mean, on the surface, it's a philosophical journey in many ways, but it's also about the guy's unraveling at certain aspects where he starts to question what quality is and all this kind of thing. But one of the points that he mentions to his son when they're climbing a mountain is it's often better to travel than to arrive.
Yeah.
And I think that ties in perfectly with what you just said there, in that it's not necessarily what you get out of Club 11 12 months down the line, 2 years down the line, whatever. It's the day-to-day work that you're getting the true value from, right? Whether that's being sat writing a piece, whether that's working with Gabriel out in the field on a video piece, like one of the video profiles, or whether that's communicating with the wider team across the country, like that's all the stuff that means something, right? When you if you end up sat on a boat in 5 years that's bought and paid for off the back of Club 11's comprehensive World Cup coverage, then that will all be the result of these micro moments on a day-to-day where you're doing the things that you enjoy and that bring you fulfillment, which is creative output, collaboration, and connection.
Yeah.
And then whatever comes out of that, put that down as a win bonus, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think yeah, when it comes to thinking of like, payoffs and rewards, like it's funny to think about, we'll be sitting on a boat, 5 years from now, sipping margaritas or whatever, but but I know for
rented boat.
Rented boat.
That
but
would be my advice.
Yeah. But I think yeah, like when we look at for a lot of us, like it's difficult because I don't it's tough really, like I mentioned, there doesn't seem to be a roadmap, and you don't know eventually what that end goal will be, or even if there is an end goal, right? But I think just going back to the whole process of doing things, I think that's, at least for me personally, where I found a lot of the rewards. I think I've gotten to cover games that I never could have dreamed of being at when I was a kid. I get to go to all these different places around the country and meet people that are just as obsessed about the game as me, and they do incredible work. And on top of that, they're my friends. And whether it's crashing on their couch for a couple nights when we're working on a project, going out to drink with them after we're done working on something, it's those moments that I think eventually I'm going to look back to and think like, wow, at least during that whole time, I got to do all these things, and I had the opportunity to pursue my dream. And not only that, but I got to do it with people that I liked, people that were friends. So I don't think there's like a bigger reward than that. Maybe there will be a rented boat down the line, but yeah, I guess all the rewards are already here. And I think it's, I'm glad that this conversation has kind of brought that to light, because I kind of think about these things a little bit from time to time. But it is good sometimes to, kind of take a pause and realize like, okay, I think we're doing something special. And not only that, I get to do it with my brother and with people that I'm very proud to call my friends. So it's great. The rewards are already here, I guess.
Yes, it sounds like you already won, mate. And
Yeah.
that feels like a really beautiful, organic way to wind this up. It's been a really interesting listen to learn the origins of Club 11. So organic, so pure in the fact that it's something that just started out as essentially just a creative outlet with you and Gabriel, and has turned into something that, is not only countrywide, but it's, I'm over here in the UK.
Yeah.
Taking value from your content. There'll be people all over the place that are taking value from the work that you're doing. And it all started with a trip to Spain.
Trip to Spain, yeah.
An opportunistic photograph.
Yeah.
The Peruvian media, and taking some chances, right? Just having a swing at it. And there's a lot to be said for just giving something a go. And what you guys have created over there is a testament to that. It really is.
No, thank you so much. Yeah.
Nice one, mate.
I gotta say it definitely means a lot that there is somebody from the UK that's kind of looking at our work now and taking something from it. I think at the end of the day, that's why we started to do this, was just to for people to connect with the sport here in North America. And hey, now there's people from abroad that I guess are already kind of looking at the work that we do and enjoying it, and um, it definitely means a lot, Joe.
Nice one, mate. Yeah, this beautiful game keeps bringing people together, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
if nothing else, it does that. It's a lot more goes on off the pitch with this game than
Then
does
on
on it.
it, yeah.
Yeah, we've
And
got a lot to thank it for.
I definitely gotta say, it also means a lot that you are doing this, just because I mean I know a lot of people that I've had the honor to work with before have also appeared on the podcast here, and um, I think, at least for me personally, it's great because for a lot of us here, we consider ourselves storytellers, and we're usually at the other end of things, right? We're telling somebody else's story. But I think it's really special that now there's somebody who's telling our stories. For me, this has been really cool because I get to be at the other end of the conversation, and that's not really where I usually find myself. But it feels really cool to have somebody who cares about getting these stories out there, and kind of understanding a little bit more of everything that goes on behind the scenes. So I definitely got to thank you for all the work that you're doing, and I know that for a lot of us here, it means a lot.
Mate, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, I enjoy doing it. I don't do
yeah,
it for any kind of validation, but my ego will take any validation
yeah,
regardless. So
yeah,
thank you very much, mate. That really does mean a lot. On that note,
yeah,
if there's anyone that you would like, or anyone that you think rather would like to talk with me on here that you think would make a
hmm
good conversation, then let me know. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, it'd be great to
I'll
get some more names on the list. There's some good ones
yeah,
coming up as well that I think you'll be quite excited about. No
yeah, yeah.
spoilers.
No, I've seen you've
Oh,
been
I'll probably put them up anyway. I'll probably put them up on Instagram anyway. Say no spoilers. It's like
yeah.
I'll probably post
But
it in an hour.
yeah, but I've seen you've been ramping up with all the interviews lately. So it's exciting to hear that there's more coming down the line. If
Yeah,
uh
it's because I went
if
on
there's somebody that
holiday
sorry.
and I realized it's
Oh
because I
yeah.
went on holiday and I realized I didn't have enough in the tank to
Hmm.
keep me ticking over. And I was like, oh, I need to get a few more in the bag before I can start enjoying holidays. So I
Yeah,
found myself on holiday working away at it, which is no bad thing because
yeah,
I love doing it.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, if there's somebody that I can recommend, obviously I would recommend my brother Gabriel. He's great.
Yeah,
But there's also a lot
it'd
of
be good
people
to get
from
his
Club 11
take.
that would be great. Yeah, yeah. I wonder I wonder what his side of the story will be like. I mean, it's
Yeah,
funny. Even
well,
within twins, we have like different perspectives and all that. So it's it's cool. It's cool. That would be a great one. But there's obviously a lot of other people that immediately come to mind, and I'll definitely hit you up with a few names that I think would be really cool to highlight.
nice one. Thanks, mate. I would love it if Gabriel starts off the conversation by saying, "Yes, so I had this idea, and
Yeah, it was all me.
yeah. Pablo was down on his luck, and he was like he needed some help. So I gave him a few things to do, and yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah. Oh my
it's all
god.
me. It's all me.
It's all me. Yeah. I don't know that guy Pablo. Who is he? Yeah.
Nice one, mate. I'll let you crack on with your day over there.
Yeah.
Um, enjoy whatever's going on. You've probably got. I mean, I think your seasons over there are a bit more reliable, right? On the East Coast, it's probably quite warm over there now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, today is a pretty gloomy day, which is
Oh,
sad, uh, but yeah. I mean, I think the
makes
summer
me
here
feel a
in
little bit better. Makes me feel a
yeah,
little bit better that I'm not missing out on any kind of spring summer action as I look out
yeah.
this window at a very
No,
sunny day.
I've never been to the UK, but the few things that I know about over there is cloudy skies. I feel like that's
Yeah,
that's what I
very,
usually
very,
associate with.
very, very short summers.
Yeah,
Blink and you'll miss
blink
it,
and you
mate.
miss. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh, nice one. I'll let you crack on. Thanks for the time. I really appreciate it. Glad you like the hat.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to buy I'm gonna have to buy that one. I want the prototype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This will cost a pretty penny. That one that'll go in like a glass box in a museum
Glass box.
somewhere. I imagine.
Save it for me, please.
Maybe in the museum. It'll end up in DC.
Right. Exactly.
With some Nando's sauce.
Nando's sauce
all over it. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Nice one, mate. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Joe. I'll see you.
Bye, mate. Thank
Bye.
you.